Hey, tonight we're exploring something soft and slow, something just beneath the surface of our everyday lives. It hides in smiles, in gestures that feel kind, in the quiet space between sentences. We're talking about the subtle, often invisible tricks the human mind plays. Tricks used not always with malice, and sometimes without any awareness at all. Imagine you're walking through a dim hallway. Not menacing, just quiet. Walls the color of old paper. The faint sound of footsteps that aren't yours. You pause to look behind. No one. That feeling, that almost feeling, is what tonight's story lives inside. You probably won't survive this world unchanged. But that's the point. So, before you get too comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you enjoy quiet stories like this. And if you're still awake, post your location and the local time. There's always someone else listening, somewhere far away. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You walk into a memory. It isn't yours, not exactly, but it fits. A friend who always does nice things for you, offers help before you even ask, remembers your favorite coffee, laughs at your jokes even when they're fading halfway out of your mouth. It feels good, warm, and yet there's a strange edge to it. You start noticing the quiet tension that follows when you say no. The pause, the slight cooling of their voice. You start to feel like maybe, just maybe, their kindness comes with a price. You wouldn't call it manipulation, not really, but something in your body registers it differently, like stepping onto a rug and realizing there's something hard beneath it. This is what psychologists sometimes call transactional warmth, a subconscious exchange that happens under the surface of genuine care. The person may not know they're doing it. They may just feel that if they keep giving, you will eventually respond the way they want. And sometimes they're right. Here's a quietly fascinating fact. In behavioral psychology, the norm of reciprocity is so deeply embedded in our species that it activates in the brain before we're even fully conscious of it. You're wired to respond to kindness with something in return. Not just emotionally, but neurologically. Even a gift you didn't ask for can shift your decision-making later. And now, imagine a person who knows that, or even half knows it, in that murky way we sometimes sense how others work. They smile, they help, they give, and beneath it all, they nudge you. The eerie part is this. Some of the most skilled manipulators aren't doing it deliberately. They've just grown up in a world where this kind of exchange works. They might truly believe they're being kind, but their version of kindness always seems to steer the story a certain way. A moment flashes across your memory. You remember saying no to someone like that, and suddenly the warmth in their eyes dimmed. You didn't fight them. You didn't argue, but something in you shrank, just a little. And in shrinking, you stepped closer to what they wanted. This isn't a crime. This isn't evil, but it is a form of invisible architecture, quietly guiding the emotional space between people. Some call it covert influence, others emotional engineering. And researchers still wonder if the brain can ever fully distinguish between genuine giving and subconscious expectation. How much of what we call generosity is a social tool we don't understand? Where is the line between love and leverage? The hallway shifts in your mind. Now you're sitting at a table. There's a cup of tea in your hands. Someone across from you is speaking softly. They're smiling as they talk about how much they've done for you. And you find yourself nodding. You find yourself feeling lucky. But you also feel a flicker of something else, a quiet obligation. like a string has been tied to your wrist, gently tugging. That's how it starts. Not with threats, not with force, but with the warm glow of favor and the silent tension of what comes next. You take a deep breath. The tea is warm in your hands. You know this feeling now. You can see it when it returns, because once you name the trick, its power begins to fade. You're walking again. Not far, not fast, just moving through that space between wakefulness and memory, where stories wear someone else's shoes. You remember a moment. Someone asked you what was wrong, but they asked it without words. They didn't speak. They just waited. Their silence filled the room like fog, soft and heavy, making you want to speak just to break it. But the strange part is, they didn't seem angry. They didn't look hurt. And still, you felt pulled toward explanation, apology, or something you couldn't quite name. This is what some psychologists call strategic silence. But most people don't even know they're doing it. You've probably done it yourself. A pause, a look that lingers 1 second too long. Not to punish, just to make someone feel something. And the most haunting part? Sometimes it works better than words ever could. In behavioral studies, researchers have found that humans often assign intention to silence. When someone doesn't respond, your brain starts to fill in the blanks. It can't stand the uncertainty. So it starts projecting. Did I say something wrong? Are they upset? Am I supposed to fix this? And in that guessing game, you're often negotiating with yourself, not with them. Imagine this. You're a child and your parents stop speaking after you disobey them. They're not yelling, not scolding, just quiet. That quiet wraps around you, colder than shouting. You want to say something. You want to close the gap. Now fast forward. You're grown. You're in a relationship, maybe romantic, maybe not. But again, someone stops talking. Not cruelly, just enough to make you feel like fixing something. And again, your brain does the same thing it did when you were little. It looks for the rules. It tries to solve the silence. Here's a quietly fascinating fact. Studies show that silence in conversation activates the same brain regions associated with pain response. In other words, we are wired to experience silence, not as neutral, but as social discomfort, even when no harm is meant. There's a word for it in Japanese. Harage, the art of implicit communication. Not what is said, but what is felt. A glance, a breath, a pause. And in that space, manipulation lives very comfortably. It's not that the person across from you wants to control you. In fact, they may believe they're simply giving you room. But if they've learned, through life or instinct, that their silence makes people lean in, they may use it without even thinking about it. That's the eerie beauty of this particular trick. It doesn't have to be taught. It grows in people naturally, a kind of emotional gravity. And once you notice it, you see how often entire relationships pivot not on what's said, but on what's withheld. You walk down another hallway in your mind. There are no voices here, just footsteps, your own. And maybe someone else's too, just a beat behind. You think of the last time someone went silent with you. How long did it take for your thoughts to change? How long before you softened, shifted, apologized? Not because you were wrong, but because you needed the quiet to break. And here's the question that still puzzles researchers. When someone's silence influences you, who's really in control? Are they orchestrating the outcome, or are you simply responding to your own discomfort? It's possible, even likely, that both things are true. Because silence is never just absence. It's a space we fill with our own fears, hopes, expectations. And some people, knowingly or not, let us do all the work. Back in the hallway, the lights are low. You keep walking. The walls breathe softly around you. No voices, just presence. You don't need to fear the silence, but now you recognize it. When it lingers, when it waits, when it shapes the space between people like a mold made of air. You felt it before. You'll feel it again. But now you can choose whether to speak into it or just walk past. You find yourself in a room full of reflections. Not mirrors exactly, but something softer. The kind of space where faces echo your expressions, where gestures feel familiar, even when you've just met someone. It begins with a tilt of the head. They sip their drink the way you do. Their laugh stutters on the same syllables. And when you say something important, they nod. Not too quickly, not too slowly, like they already agree. You feel seen, understood. Like this person gets you, almost instinctively. But here's the question whispering beneath it all. Do they get you? Or are they just mirroring? This is the psychological trick called the chameleon effect, a natural human behavior where one person unconsciously mimics another's body language, speech patterns, or even breathing. Most of the time, it's harmless, comforting even. But when done with intention, it becomes something else. You sit across from someone, and they've started reflecting your every subtle move. Not exactly, not perfectly, but just enough. And you don't notice it directly. You just feel more at ease. Your guard slips. You start to like them because you're not just looking at them, you're seeing pieces of yourself. Here's a quietly fascinating fact. Neuroscientists have found that mirror neurons in our brain light up when we observe behavior in others, especially if that behavior reflects our own emotional state. It's part of how we form empathy. But it also makes us vulnerable to those who know how to reflect us back at just the right angle. Salespeople know this. So do cult leaders. So do lovers who want more from you than they'll say out loud. But what's unnerving is how often this happens with no clear intent. The other person may not even realize they're doing it. They just want to be liked, to be trusted. So their brain, or maybe their loneliness, takes over. And what's more, you might be doing it too. You smile because they smile. You match their energy, their rhythm, their size. It's not a performance. It's a survival skill. We are, after all, social creatures built to harmonize. But in this soft, dreamlike moment, you begin to wonder, how many of your connections are based on truth, and how many are just good reflections? It's not an easy question, because there's something deeply comforting about being mirrored. It feels like falling into a version of yourself that's finally understood. You remember a friend, the way they mirrored your values, your routines, your grief. And when they left, it felt like losing part of your own reflection, like a version of you had walked away too. Some psychologists argue that this is one of the earliest bonding mechanisms in human development. Infants learn to trust by being mirrored, facial expressions, sounds, emotions. And when those patterns break later in life, it can feel like abandonment. But researchers still wonder, where is the line between empathy and performance? At what point does mirroring become manipulation, especially when the one doing it doesn't even realize they're playing a role? You imagine a lake, still, glass-like. You look down and see your face smiling back, then a ripple, a distortion. And suddenly you realize it wasn't your face at all, just something close enough to make you trust it. You sit with that thought, not urgently, just curiously, like turning a stone over in your hand and wondering where it came from. And in this stillness, you begin to see how often people become reflections, sometimes to connect, sometimes to influence, and sometimes just to survive being seen. You walk again, not away, just deeper, into a space where likeness and longing look a lot like truth. And now, when someone mirrors you, you might still feel warmth, but you'll also feel the weight of the question behind their smile. Who are you really, when no one's reflecting you back? You're standing in a small, quiet room. There's a window here, but the curtains are drawn. A single chair, a table. A sense that something was just said, but the words have already vanished. You sit, and across from you, someone kind, someone who cares. They speak softly, reminding you of how much they've done, how much they've given, not proudly, not bitterly, just softly. You nod, you remember, and still your chest tightens just a little, like something invisible is being placed there. This is a moment of soft guilt. Guilt that arrives not as accusation, but as gentle invitation. You're not forced. You're not shamed. You're simply reminded of your weight and encouraged to carry more. This is one of the oldest psychological levers in human behavior, the silent suggestion that you owe something, not because of a contract, but because of care. You don't want to be ungrateful. You don't want to disappoint. So you take on more time, energy, obligation, all wrapped in the ribbon of quiet kindness. This technique isn't always intentional. In fact, most of the time it's woven into us from early life. When someone sighs after helping us, when they say it's fine but look away, when we sense their disappointment like a shift in weather, your body remembers that feeling, even if your mind tries to brush it off. Here's a quietly fascinating fact. Studies show that people feel more compelled to repay a favor when the giver subtly signals emotional strain, like fatigue, disappointment, or quiet sacrifice. The guilt doesn't need to be named, it just needs to be sensed. And what's more eerie is that this guilt doesn't need to be rooted in truth. The giver may not actually be exhausted. They may not truly resent the giving. But if they communicate just enough discomfort, the recipient, you, will start to self-regulate. You begin editing yourself, saying yes when you mean maybe, offering more than you want to. Because not giving back feels heavier than giving in. You remember a conversation, a friend who did something kind for you, unexpected, generous, and later they didn't say anything, but their eyes lingered too long on your forgetfulness. Their laugh seemed slightly tighter. You ended up doing more than you planned, not because they asked, but because you couldn't stand how it felt not to. This is a deeply human trick, not malicious, not monstrous, just subtle enough to shape behavior without words. And what's unsettling is this. People who use soft guilt often believe they're just being honest. They're not plotting. They're not scheming. They may feel truly hurt, truly unseen. But in expressing that pain, even delicately, they sometimes push others into compliance. You walk down a long corridor of your own memories. Moments where someone gave you something, time, love, sacrifice, and you began to feel that you could never fully repay them. This isn't manipulation in the way people usually imagine it. There's no villain in here, just emotion with gravity. Some researchers believe this is part of moral indebtedness, a social glue that evolved to maintain cohesion in groups. But like all glues, it can become sticky, clingy, suffocating. There's an eerie thought here, half-formed. What if the guilt you carry doesn't belong to you? What if you've absorbed it from someone who didn't mean to give it? And even more curious, what if you've given that same guilt to someone else without knowing it? You think of someone who once told you, "Don't worry, I'll be fine." And you felt a pull to do more, Not because you wanted to, but because you couldn't stand the idea of not doing enough. Now you sit with that weight, not to blame, not to untangle, just to notice. Because guilt, when it's quiet, is often the most persuasive voice in the room, and recognizing it, naming it, doesn't make you cold, it makes you free. Outside, the curtains shift. A little light seeps in, just enough to remind you that the guilt you've been given isn't always yours to keep. The hallway narrows, not in a threatening way, just enough to notice. Like your path is being gently guided step by step without you realizing it. You don't feel pushed, you don't feel forced, but somehow you're walking exactly where someone else hoped you would. And the strange part? They didn't tell you to. They asked a question. Simple, harmless. Would you mind helping me just this once? Or maybe, don't you think most people would agree with me on this? And before you knew it, your options rearranged themselves. Your thoughts began shifting to match the space they'd left open. This is the realm of loaded questions, or more precisely, questions with hooks. Questions that don't just ask, they shape. You're still choosing, or so it feels. But your choices are now framed, tilted slightly by how the question arrived. You probably remember a time like this. Someone asked if you could quickly do a favor. And just by calling it quick, they softened your resistance. You didn't want to be the one who made it complicated, so you said yes, even when you didn't want to. Here's a quietly fascinating fact. In cognitive linguistics, the way a question is framed can influence decisions more than the content of the question itself. This is known as framing bias. Even a slight change in tone or implied expectation can shift how your brain calculates the best response. Ask, do you want to donate? And people pause. But ask, would you like to help a child in need? And the emotional framework changes entirely. Some people learn this instinctively. They become expert framers without knowing the terminology. They don't coerce, they invite. But the path they offer leads, often, in only one direction. And what's eerier still is that questions with hooks don't always sound manipulative. They sound generous, curious, even vulnerable. Are you sure you're okay? Don't you think this might be the better way? Wouldn't you feel bad if you didn't? Each one a soft thread. By itself, nothing. But woven together, they form a net. You think of a past conversation. You didn't want to agree, but the question made the alternative feel impolite, ungrateful, or even cruel. So you said yes, and the story continued, on rails you didn't lay. Some social scientists argue that suggestive questioning is one of the earliest forms of social training. Parents use it, teachers use it, friends, partners, bosses, not to deceive, but to guide. Sometimes toward safety, sometimes toward surrender. But researchers still debate a subtler point. When does influence become manipulation, especially if no one intends harm? And can you truly choose freely if the choice has already been softened? You step back in your mind. You walk through scenes where questions shaped your answers. Not because you were weak, not because you lacked clarity, but because the questions came wrapped in care or concern or quiet pressure. It's not something to fear, but it is something to see. And now you begin to feel it when someone asks something, not just to know, but to lead. When the door they open is already half closed behind you. There's no need to harden. You don't need to stop trusting. But you can notice the frame. You can feel the hook before it catches. You return to that narrowing hallway, still walking, still calm, but now with a sense of the architecture behind the questions. And when the next one comes, you might pause. Tilt your head and ask one of your own. You open a door. The room beyond is warm, gentle light, soft cushions, shelves filled with familiar things, and someone is there, smiling, welcoming. They say your name the way it's meant to be said. They remember small things. They tell you you're brilliant, that they admire your patience, that they're lucky to know you. You smile back. It feels good. It feels safe. But in time, you begin to feel something else, just beneath the surface. A tension, a quiet expectation, a pressure not to disappoint. You think, what would they say if I failed them? What if I wasn't patient or generous or kind today? That's how the warm cage of praise is built. Not through control, not through punishment, but through approval so gentle, so genuine, that you begin to organize yourself around it. You want to keep the smile alive. You want to stay the person they admire. And so, sometimes, you stop being someone else you also are. This is a trick that doesn't feel like one. In fact, it often comes wrapped in affection. But beneath it, there's structure, a psychological shaping mechanism that rewards conformity to a certain identity. Praise, in this sense, is a form of operant conditioning. That's the quietly fascinating fact in this section. When approval is given for specific behaviors, even unconsciously, it increases the likelihood of those behaviors repeating. You are being trained, softly, kindly, but trained all the same. The eerie part? The trainer might not even know they're doing it. They may simply love you when you're calm, when you're helpful, when you meet their needs without resistance. And so, you learn to become the version of yourself that earns the smile and suppress the versions that don't. You think back to a parent, perhaps, or a teacher, someone who told you you were so mature for your age, and you wore that praise like a crown, but also like a chain. Because now losing your temper felt like failure. Crying felt like betrayal. You couldn't be messy or loud or hurt, not if you wanted to stay beloved. This shaping can happen in adult relationships too. A friend tells you you're the only one who really listens. A partner praises how you never complain. A boss admires your willingness to stay late without being asked. Each compliment feels good. Each one paints a piece of a portrait. But soon, that portrait becomes a mask, and the person underneath begins to disappear. You may not notice it at first. You may just feel obliged to be easy, helpful, strong. You start to flinch, not from criticism, but from praise, because you know what it costs. Researchers have studied this in children. They found that excessive praise can lead to increased anxiety and risk avoidance. Why? Because the child becomes afraid to lose the praise, afraid to fail, afraid to be anything less than perfect. That's the cage, not made of cruelty, made of kindness, overused. And what's most mysterious is that the person offering the praise may be just as trapped. They may only know how to love what's easy, what's bright, what doesn't challenge them. And so you keep shining. Even when you're exhausted, you walk through the warm room again, the cushions, the light. It's not a prison, not exactly, but you've started to notice the rules, unspoken but felt. You pause by the door. You don't have to leave. But now, you know that love can sometimes come with a script, and that praise, while beautiful, can be a leash. You take a breath. You let go of the version of yourself that always pleases. And you wait, just to see if the light stays on when you stop smiling. The hallway cools, just slightly. A breeze you didn't notice before moves across your thoughts. You're standing outside a door this time. There's no sound behind it, but something about the stillness draws you in. You reach for the handle, and just as your hand brushes it, you remember how it felt last time. Not the welcome, but what came after it disappeared. This is the slow freeze, a withdrawal, not of words, but of warmth. You didn't do anything terrible. You didn't shout, break, betray, but something shifted and their light turned away. You look back now and realize you were being taught how to behave, taught what parts of yourself were welcome and what parts were too much. This technique, this pattern, is known in psychology as intermittent reinforcement. That's the quietly fascinating fact here. When warmth or approval is given inconsistently, it strengthens attachment, not weakens it. Strangely, it pulls people in deeper. Imagine this. A child does something their parent loves. They're rewarded, smiles, hugs, praise. The next time they do the same thing, the parent is cold, distracted, distant, and the child doesn't understand. So they try harder, they become better, quieter, more pleasing. And in time, they learn love is not guaranteed. The eerie truth? That lesson follows us into adulthood. You remember a friend or lover who slowly pulled away. Not completely, just enough. They stopped replying as quickly, stopped laughing as much. Their attention grew selective. And instead of pulling back, you leaned in. You tried to fix what you couldn't name. You changed how you spoke, how you dressed, how you shared, all to earn back something that used to come freely. That's the trap. Not abandonment, but threatened absence. A slow erosion that makes you question your worth and then work to restore it. And often, the person doing it doesn't fully know. They might be hurting. They might be seeking control in the only way they've learned, by closing the door just a little. Researchers have found that intermittent affection activates the brain's reward center more intensely than consistent attention, like a slot machine. You don't know when the warmth will return, so you keep playing. You tell yourself it's just a rough patch, that they're tired, distracted, but deep down, something in you understands. You're being shaped. Not by force, but by the ache of what's missing. You walk back into memory again. A cold dinner, a pause in conversation, the look someone gave you when you finally said no. You didn't mean to disappoint them, but you did. And they didn't punish you with anger. They punished you with distance. And so you adjusted, softened, apologized for shadows you didn't cast. The problem with the slow freeze is that it makes you freeze yourself, your voice, your wants, even your truth. Not to survive, but to stay loved. This isn't always deliberate. Some people withdraw as a reflex. They're overwhelmed or uncomfortable with conflict. But over time, this silence teaches others how to tiptoe. And when you're tiptoeing long enough, you forget how to stand flat-footed in your own life. You pause now. Look around the hallway of your thoughts. You see the outlines of old patterns, cold shoulders, emotional winters. You're not angry, you're just aware. And that awareness, that gentle light, it begins to melt the frost. Because now, you can notice when warmth turns selective, when presence becomes a tool, and when someone's withdrawal is teaching you to disappear. You take a breath, you stay still, and this time, you don't chase the warmth. You wait to see if it comes back on its own, and if it doesn't, you remember, your worth isn't something you have to earn over and over again. You step into a dim, narrow room, lit only by the glow of something hidden, flickering gently behind a curtain. It smells faintly of old paper and time. There's a low hum, like memory trying to speak. In the center of the room sits a notebook, open, waiting. You don't remember writing in it, but the words feel familiar. A voice speaks, not aloud, more like a presence behind your ear. They share something with you, something they've never told anyone else. And just like that, you're different. You're trusted, you're included. This is the moment of the shared secret, the exchange that binds. It starts softly. I've never told anyone this, or maybe you're the only person I feel comfortable saying this to. And in that moment, you feel special, closer, chosen. But what if that closeness comes with quiet consequences? What if that secret wasn't just a confession, but a key? This is the quiet mechanism of mutual vulnerability. When someone opens themselves to you, you feel an urge, a need to reciprocate, to match their trust, to prove yourself worthy of the secret. Here's a quietly fascinating fact. In psychological studies, reciprocal self-disclosure is one of the fastest ways to build intimacy between strangers. It short-circuits hesitation, it lowers defenses, and often, it creates a sense of obligation. You've probably felt this. Someone tells you about their childhood trauma, their fears, their regrets. And even if you weren't ready to share, you do. Because silence after someone's truth can feel cold, and kindness demands symmetry. But sometimes, just sometimes, that secret isn't about vulnerability. It's about leverage. Not always consciously, not always cruelly, but once something important is shared, a power dynamic begins to shift. You might not feel it at first, but soon you begin to notice how often they return to that moment. How their pain becomes part of every conversation. How their story becomes a map you must follow or risk seeming careless. And if you ever pull away, they remind you, gently, I told you because I trusted you. Now the secret becomes a fuse, and you are holding the match. There's something eerily beautiful about this kind of bond. It feels sacred, protective, and for many people it is. But researchers still wonder, at what point does mutual vulnerability become emotional dependency? When does a shared secret stop connecting you and start binding you? The room shifts slightly. You see more notebooks, each one open to a moment where someone handed you a truth, and you held it like something fragile. But in time, it grew heavy, and you realized not every secret is meant to be shared. Not every bond is meant to be carried. You think of someone who told you everything, and in return asked nothing, explicitly. But you felt the pressure anyway, the pressure to be loyal, to stay, to absorb. This isn't manipulation in the way we often think of it. It's not a trap laid in malice. It's often something softer. Someone broken, handing you a piece of their sharpness, hoping you'll hold it better than they could. But now, you've begun to notice the weight. And in doing so, you understand. You can hold someone's story without becoming part of their structure. You close the notebook in your mind, gently, respectfully. You keep the secret, but not the leash, because trust doesn't have to mean surrender. And love doesn't always require carrying what was never yours to fix. The curtain glows a little brighter. You don't pull it back. You don't need to. It's enough now, just knowing it's there. The room shifts again. Walls become softer, colors muted like memory washed in twilight. And here in the quiet, you see something unusual. A photograph, slightly blurred, hanging just off center. It's an image of a day you remember, but not quite the way it looks here. You lean in. The details are off. The sky wasn't that color. Your expression, too calm. The story somehow rewritten. This is the kindly rewrite, when someone takes your memory and edits it, not to deceive, but to comfort or to control. It begins gently. That's not how I remember it. Or, I think you were just tired that day. You pause, you start to doubt, and soon you wonder whether your memory was ever accurate at all. The term psychologists use for this is memory reframing. And here's the quietly fascinating fact. Human memory is reconstructive, not a recording, but a story you rebuild every time you recall it. That means it's vulnerable, soft around the edges, and easily influenced by suggestion. If someone you trust retells a shared moment with enough confidence, your brain often surrenders. It says, maybe they're right, maybe I'm wrong. This is where gaslighting begins. Not always in cruelty, but in quiet revision. A rephrased sentence, a softened motive, a missing tear. The eerie thing is, people often do this without malice. They remember their own version of events, and their version feels more comfortable, more flattering, more fair. So they repeat it, and over time, it becomes the official story. And you, not wanting conflict, not wanting to seem dramatic, go along. You let them tell it. You laugh at their version. You learn to nod when they speak of that vacation, that argument, that day you cried and they forgot why. But deep down, a small part of you aches because that memory mattered. And now it's gone, or at least altered. You think back now, a relationship where the story kept changing. At first, it was mutual. Later, it was your fault. They never meant to hurt you. They just remember it differently. You were told you misunderstood, that you were too sensitive, that maybe it didn't happen quite like that. And even now, part of you wonders, did it? Researchers have long debated the boundary between shared memory and manipulation. If both people believe their version is true, who owns the story? And more hauntingly, how many of your memories have already been rewritten by someone else's comfort? There's a certain intimacy to this, a closeness, because only those nearest to us are close enough to touch our memories, to sculpt them, and sometimes reshape who we believe we were. You look at the photograph again. It's still beautiful, but it's not quite real. And you begin to wonder, how many versions of you exist in other people's stories? How many of those versions you've silently accepted just to keep the peace? There's no blame here, just awareness, a soft unfolding. You sit down in the room, not to fight the memory, but to reclaim it, to say quietly, that's not how I remember it, and that's okay. Because truth isn't always shared, but that doesn't make it less real. You leave the room, the photo stays behind, but this time, your memory walks with you, unedited, unexplained, yours. You walk into a long, narrow garden. It's dusk, not quite night, not quite day. The path beneath your feet is soft. On either side, vines curl upward around wooden frames, gently guiding you forward. The garden is quiet, but you're not alone. There's someone beside you. They're pointing out the flowers, naming them, describing how rare some are. They mention how hard they work to grow them, how many hours they spent unseen, and after a while, you feel it. A subtle sense that your admiration is expected. That walking through this garden isn't just about beauty. It's about witnessing their effort. This is the subtle space of invisible scorekeeping, when generosity becomes a quiet transaction. Nothing is asked, nothing is demanded, but still the air shifts. You say thank you more often. You offer gestures in return, not because you were asked to, but because you feel like you should. Here's a quietly fascinating fact. Psychologists have found that humans keep mental ledgers of social exchange, often without realizing it. We track fairness. We balance effort. Even in close relationships, the mind notices when things tilt too far. The eerie part is when someone keeps score silently. They smile. They wave it off. But every time they help, they file it away. And one day, when you say no, it all comes out. After everything I've done for you, you weren't told there was a ledger. But suddenly, the weight of those invisible entries is placed in your hands. it's not always malicious. Sometimes it comes from exhaustion, from someone feeling unappreciated, unseen. But the effect is the same. You're no longer giving or receiving freely. You're playing a game you didn't agree to and can't win. You think of someone who never asked for thanks, but always looked hurt when it wasn't offered. You think of all the small moments you tried to make up for it. An extra favor, an apology you didn't owe, a habit of overgiving that slowly became your norm. And over time, you stopped knowing which of your actions were genuine and which were simply repayments. Some researchers call this emotional debt, a subtle force that builds when generosity isn't truly unconditional. In relationships where emotional debt piles up, people start acting out of obligation, not love. They say yes when they want to say no. They give to avoid guilt, not to express care. And worse still, the person who keeps the ledger might not even realize they're doing it. They just feel tired, taken for granted. And in trying to fix that pain, they begin collecting quiet proof. You return to the garden. It's still lovely, still blooming. But now, you see it differently. You wonder, how many of these flowers were planted for beauty, and how many were planted to be noticed? You think back to your own giving. Have you ever helped someone, then felt cold when they didn't respond the way you hoped? It doesn't make you unkind, it makes you human. We all want to be seen, but the question is, can we give without expecting reflection? Can we be generous without keeping score? You pause by the path. There's a small flower near your foot, unremarkable, unnoticed, and yet it's still growing, still offering its color to the dusk. Maybe not all gifts need witnesses. Maybe some things are worth doing, even if no one claps. You breathe in soft earth, fading light, and as you walk on, you release the ledger you didn't ask to hold. Not out of defiance, but out of freedom. Now you find yourself in a quiet library, the kind with tall ceilings and shelves that seem to lean in, curious. The lights hum gently overhead. No one speaks, but in the stillness there's something else. A presence, a gaze. You're being watched, not by a person, but by an expectation. You feel it in small ways, how you walk, how you speak. You feel the shape you're supposed to take in this room, not because anyone told you, but because everyone else here is already playing a part. This is the soft mechanism of social mirroring, a phenomenon where the expectations of others shape your identity more than your own intentions do. It happens slowly. You grow into the image people hold of you. You become the responsible one, the calm one, the strong one. And soon, that version of you walks into every room before you do. Here's a quietly fascinating fact. In sociology, this is known as the looking glass self. The idea that we form our sense of identity based on how we believe others perceive us. We don't just live as ourselves, we live in response to the reflections around us. You might think back to a time someone called you reliable. It felt good, so you became more reliable, even when it hurt. Or someone once said, "You're always so composed." And so, the next time you felt overwhelmed, you smiled instead, because anything less would crack the mirror. This isn't about lying. It's about performance that becomes indistinguishable from reality. And here's the eerie part. You may no longer know where your true self ends and their expectations begin. You walk through the library, each aisle a different role you've played. You see the good friend, the high achiever, the quiet one who doesn't cause problems. And somewhere, tucked behind those roles, a voice asks softly, "What would you be if no one were watching?" Researchers still wonder how much of the self is innate and how much is socially constructed. One theory suggests that identity is less like a statue and more like a collage, constantly updated through your interactions. Which means, if people expect you to be kind, you're more likely to act kindly. If people expect you to be selfish, you may unconsciously fulfill that script just to meet their emotional rhythm. This isn't manipulation in the overt sense, but it is influence, and it runs deeper than most people realize. Even now, as you walk through your memories, you can sense it. The version of you that showed up for your family, the one that showed up for your first love, the one that still shows up for people who don't know you've changed. And yet, these versions are not false. They are real, but they are not complete. You pause by a reading table. There's a stack of blank pages. A pen rests nearby like an invitation. This is the part where you wonder, what would it be like to write a page with no audience in mind? No mirror, no silent gaze, not to impress, not to reassure, but just to be. You may still be shaped by the world, by whispers and nods and smiles that tell you who to become, but now you begin to notice which pieces are truly yours. And that awareness, it doesn't erase the mirrors, but it lets you choose which ones to keep. You turn from the table. The pages remain blank, but they're waiting. And for the first time in a long time, you're not rushing to fill them. You walk now through a corridor lined with doors. Each one is slightly ajar. Behind some, soft laughter. Behind others, silence that feels like a held breath. You pause at one. The name on it is yours, but not quite. It's the version of your name someone used only when they were upset. Only when they needed you to feel small. You open the door, and there in the dim light is a chair. In it sits an idea, not of you, but of who someone wanted you to believe you were. This is the quiet trick of identity erosion. Not a theft, not a scream, just the steady chipping away of your self-perception. Until you begin to question the outline of who you've always been. It might begin with a joke, a nickname, a comment about how sensitive you are, or how dramatic, or how selfish. Said softly, said often, until it starts to stick. Here's a quietly fascinating fact. Psychologists have studied how repeated labeling, even in jest, can alter a person's self-concept over time. It's called self-verification theory. The idea that people seek confirmation of the identity they've been assigned, even if it's inaccurate or painful. And the eerie part? Once that label is accepted, you may begin to act in ways that reinforce it. You start apologizing more. You hesitate before speaking. You wonder if your needs really are too much. And all the while, the original version of you, the one who asked clearly, who laughed loudly, who felt deeply, begins to dim. You recall someone from your past, someone who always needed you to be the easy one. And the moment you pushed back, they called you difficult or cold or disappointing. And rather than fight it, you shrank. You became simpler, quieter, less. Not because it felt good, but because it kept the peace. Some people do this intentionally. They whittle others down because a smaller version is easier to manage. But more often, it happens quietly. In relationships where one person feels insecure and steadies themselves by reshaping the other. You always overreact. You're just like your mother. You're not as kind as you think you are. Each phrase, a whisper against the walls of your self-worth. You begin to doubt your own edges. Researchers have linked identity erosion to emotional gaslighting. Not the kind that makes you question what happened, but the kind that makes you question who you are. You stop trusting your strengths. You downplay your instincts. You start saying things like, maybe I'm just being crazy. Maybe I really am the problem. But tonight, in this dim room, you hear something else. A quiet voice. Yours. The version of you before the sanding down began. Not a perfect voice, but a real one. And it says, you're not too much. You're not imagining it. You were always enough, even when they couldn't handle all of you. You sit in that chair for a while, not to fight the old labels, but to outgrow them, because they were never your size to begin with. You walk back out into the corridor. The other doors are still open, but now you know which ones to close. And as you move forward, you begin to gather the fragments of yourself left behind in other people's definitions. Not to return to who you were, but to step into who you are with edges intact. The floor beneath you changes now, from stone to sand, soft, shifting. Each step quiets you further, as if the earth is helping you let go. You're near water, not a sea, not quite a lake. It moves slowly, almost still. And on its surface, something floats. Paper boats, each one folded from a message someone once gave you. Some kind, some cruel, but all of them unfinished. This is the realm of conditional care. Love, not as a constant, but as a contract with invisible terms. I'm here for you. As long as you don't change too much, I'll support you, unless it makes me uncomfortable. I love you when you're easy to love. You've heard versions of this. We all have. Here's a quietly fascinating fact. In attachment theory, people with anxious or avoidant styles often express love inconsistently, providing emotional connection, then withdrawing it when overwhelmed. The result? A bond that feels real but unstable. You don't know what will trigger the shift, so you try harder to avoid it. And the most unsettling part? You may start believing that this is what love is supposed to feel like. Care that flickers, support that depends, affection that costs. You remember a moment like this. You said something honest, or asked for too much, or showed a part of yourself that wasn't pleasing, and the warmth in their voice cooled, just slightly, enough for your body to notice. So the next time, you held back, smiled smaller, asked for less. Conditional care teaches you that your value is tied to performance, and the performance must never falter. A friend who only shows up when you're calm, a partner who disappears when you cry, a parent who praises you when you're quiet and punishes you with silence when you speak. They may not say the conditions out loud. They might not even know they've placed them, but your nervous system knows. It remembers, and it adapts. You begin to organize your life around what keeps their care alive. But here's the deeper truth. Care that must be earned over and over again is not safety, it's survival. You watch the paper boats drift. Some are folded from moments that looked like love, but only when you were shining, only when you were small enough to fit inside their comfort. You think about how many times you said, "It's okay, I understand," when you didn't. How many times you adjusted, softened, erased yourself, just to keep someone near. Researchers have found that people subjected to conditional care often internalize those conditions, carrying them into every future relationship, expecting abandonment as a rule, not an exception. But now, standing by this quiet water, you begin to question the rule. You look down at the nearest boat. It reads, "I'm proud of you when you succeed." You touch it gently, and with the softest breath, you unfold it until it's just paper again. Just a message, not a contract. Because care that fades when you're real was never really care. You step back, the water remains still. You let the boats float away, not in bitterness, but in release. Some people love the version of you that was easy to hold, but that version was never the whole of you. And from this point on, you don't need to shrink to be loved. You don't need to barter for affection. You can simply be, and let those who cannot hold the full shape of you fade with the tide. You follow the path as it curves gently away from the water. The sand gives way to grass, soft, wind-brushed, humming with the quiet energy of a place long forgotten. Here, the world feels less constructed, more honest. There's a bench ahead, old but strong. You sit. Around you, the world continues in slow motion. Leaves falling, clouds shifting, the weight of time made gentle. And within this stillness, you feel something subtle stirring. The moments when people made you doubt your own pace. Not by rushing you, but by planting the idea that you were behind. This is the subtle power of comparison as control. A tool that doesn't always look sharp, but cuts just the same. It might sound like, well, your brother figured that out faster. Most people your age already know how to handle this. I'm not saying you should be further along, but look at her. And just like that, your path becomes a race. Your milestones become measuring sticks. And your sense of self begins to blur. Here's a quietly fascinating fact. Neuroscience shows that the brain's reward system is deeply responsive to relative success. Not just achievement itself, but how it stacks up against others. In other words, we feel worse about doing well if someone else is doing better. It's a vulnerability that certain people, consciously or not, exploit. Instead of offering guidance, they offer a mirror, but it's warped, tuned to reflect what you lack rather than what you hold. You think back now to someone who always compared, not out of cruelty, but from their own insecurity. They wanted you to rise, but only by outrunning someone else. They wanted you to succeed, but only in ways they understood. So you began performing a version of your life, one that looked impressive from the outside, even when it felt hollow. This is how control can hide inside compliments, inside concern, inside well-meaning suggestions. I just want the best for you. You're so smart. You should be further ahead. Don't waste your potential. Each phrase sounds loving, but each one implies you're not enough yet. And slowly, your joy becomes tethered to someone else's timeline. You stop asking, what do I want? And start asking, am I catching up? You may find yourself in rooms filled with success and still feel like you're failing. Because someone taught you to measure your worth sideways, not inward. Psychologists call this extrinsic identity anchoring, when your sense of self becomes rooted in how others perceive your progress instead of how aligned you feel inside. And the eeriest part? The people who triggered this pattern might not even be present anymore, but their voices still echo, faster, smarter, better. Even in your quietest moments. But now, on this bench, in this wind-soft field, you start to feel something else. Stillness, your own rhythm. Not fast, not slow, just true. You remember that trees don't rush to bloom, that stars don't compete for brightness, that some journeys aren't measured in distance, but in depth. And you wonder, who might you become if you stopped racing? You rise, gently. The grass bends beneath your step, then straightens, undisturbed. Because you were never behind. You were never late. You were just walking a path that was always meant to take its time. You reach the edge of the field. The path narrows again, becoming something more like memory than place. Ahead, a low hill rises, wrapped in the hush of nightfall. You climb it slowly. Not with urgency, but with presence. Each step feels like a breath. At the top, there's a circle of stones. old, weathered, they've been waiting. And here at last, you meet the final shape of tonight's journey. The power of silence as strategy. Not peace, not reflection, but silence used to shift the balance. It often arrives when words are most needed. A conversation suddenly ends. A message goes unanswered. An apology never comes. You're left in the gap, guessing, wondering what you did, what you should have done. This is the subtle architecture of strategic silence, when someone chooses not to speak in order to control the story. Here's the quietly fascinating fact. In social psychology, silence can serve as a form of social dominance, signaling withdrawal of emotional validation, or forcing others to fill in the blanks with self-doubt. The eerie part is, it works. You've likely felt it before. A conversation turns. The other person falls quiet, and suddenly your thoughts turn loud. You replay everything you said. You apologize before you're asked. You try to fix something unnamed. Because silence, when misused, is not absence. It's pressure. This kind of quiet teaches people to monitor themselves, to walk carefully, to earn words back. It often appears in relationships where one person holds more emotional weight. They don't yell, they just go still. And in that stillness, you begin to shrink. You might remember a parent who gave you the cold shoulder instead of discipline, a partner who simply needed space but never returned with clarity, a friend who stopped reaching out without explanation and left you wondering whether you were ever enough. And worst of all, you may have blamed yourself for the silence. Because when someone disappears without a trace, the mind tries to make sense of the void, so it fills it with guilt, with speculation, with regret. Even now, you might hear echoes of that old stillness, how it trained you to speak gently, to be pleasing, to avoid confrontation, not because you feared anger, but because you feared the silence that might follow. But now, in this circle of stones, you realize something important. Not all silence is sacred, and not all silence deserves your surrender. Some people use quiet as a shield, others as a sword, but neither defines your worth. Researchers still debate how much silence is healthy when it fosters thought and when it becomes neglect. The answer is not always clear, but one thing is, true connection doesn't need to vanish to feel powerful. It can speak, it can stay, it can show up even in disagreement. You look out over the hill now. The sky stretches wide. You feel the kind of silence that doesn't demand, but offers. And in that stillness, you say the words no one else could give you. I was never too much. I was never too difficult. I deserved answers, and I can stop waiting, because your healing does not need their explanation, only your release. You remain on the hill for a little while longer. There's no need to hurry. The world has slowed around you. Even your thoughts feel softer now, like they're floating just beneath the surface, gentle and unafraid. The sky darkens, not with heaviness, but with calm. A hush that's not empty, but full of breath. You let go of every moment that made you doubt yourself, every quiet manipulation, every unspoken rule, every expectation that pulled you away from your center. They were real. They shaped you, but they don't own you. Tonight, you've returned to something older, something steadier, the self that existed before the mirrors, before the scripts, before the tricks. You don't need to unravel every pattern. You don't need to win every conversation that never happened. You just need to rest. Let the questions drift. Let the memories fade without judgment. Let the silence soften you instead of holding you hostage. That's all for tonight. Let your mind keep floating or drift into sleep. I'll be here again next time.